Everyone, it is Mr. Munden yet again with another IA review video. This video is on dividing decimals. Let's hop right into it. A class of 14 went to Elitch Gardens. The total admission cost for the 14 class members was $122.50. The admission cost was the same for each person. What was the admission cost for one class member? First things first, let's figure out what operation we are going to be doing. I know that we are going to be dividing because it says the admission cost was the same for each person. And we also need to find out the cost for one class member. These are telling me that I am dividing $122.50 evenly among 14. So a way that we can model that is to do a number strip. Show that that represents $122.50, and then again show that we are dividing it into 14 even pieces, 14 pieces that are the same. So let's go ahead and do that division. I'm going to set up my long division, and it's going to be $122.50 divided by 14. Let's go ahead and start dividing this. I know that 14 cannot go into 1, 14 cannot go into 12, and 14 can, however, go into 122. So let's start estimating how many times we think that 14 can go into 122. So let's start by let's try 14 times 8 and see where that gets us. 8 times 4 is 32, carry 3. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 3 is 11. That gives us 112. Let's double check to make sure that I can't go any more. So let's try 14 times 9. 9 times 4 is 36, carry 3. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. That's 126. 126 is greater than 122, so that means it's not 9. 8 is what we're going to go with. So I'm going to write 8 right there. And let's go ahead and multiply 8 times 14 is 112. Write that down there, and let's go ahead and subtract. 2 take away 2 is 0. 2 take away 1 is 1. 1 take away 1 is 0. So I have 10, and I'm going to bring down my 5. So now I have, how many times does 14 go into 105? 105 divided by 14. Let's go ahead and see what could work. Well, I know that 14 times 8 is 112, and 105 is a little bit smaller than 112, so let's try 14 times 7 over here. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. That's 98. That looks like it'll work, so let's go ahead and write 7 up here. I know that 7 times 14 is 98. I'm going to go ahead and subtract. 105 take away 98. Can't do 5 take away 8, so I have to borrow. Can't borrow from 0, so I'm going to borrow from this 1. Make that a 0. Give that to that 0. Make it 10. Make it 9. 15 take away 8 is 7. 9 take away 9 is 0. 0 take away 0 is 0, so it's 7. And I'm going to drop down this 0. So now it's 14 into 70. 70 divided by 14. So let's try 14 times 5. Let's see if that works. 5 times 4 is 20, carry 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Oh, that's 70. It goes in perfectly, so it's 5. Let's go ahead and double check to make sure that we're done. 5 times 14 is 70. 70 take away 70 is 0. There's no remainder. So now let's figure out where to put our decimal point. Well, it's not going to cost $875 for one admission ticket. Let's put our decimal point somewhere. Well, I know that when we're dividing a decimal by a whole number, the rule is that the decimal point goes straight up. So my decimal point goes right in between the 8 and the 7. So that means my final answer is $8.75. Wow, that is really cheap to go to Elitch Gardens. Let's move on to the next problem. I have 9 369 thousandths divided by 300. hundredths. Oh boy, this seems like a pretty complicated problem, so let's go ahead and do this right now. Let's set up our long division. I'm going to take 9 and 369 thousandths, put that inside my little house, divided by 3 hundredths. Well, I cannot divide by a decimal. I need to turn this 3 hundredths into a whole number. The trick to do that is to move the decimal point to the right as many times as I need to turn it into a whole number. So let's move it over once. That's 3/10, still not a whole number. Let's move it over again. There we go, now it's 3. So I moved that decimal point 1 spot, 2 spots over. Because I did that to my divisor, I need to do the same thing to the dividend. I need to move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of spots over to the right. So I'm going to move this decimal point 1 spot over and another spot. So now it is 936 9/10 divided by 3. I'm going to rewrite the entire problem just so that it's a little bit neater, because I know that when I have neat work, I'm less prone to making mistakes. So I have 936 9/10 divided by 3. Let's go ahead and start working on our division. First things first, how many times does 3 go into 9? No, that goes in 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Let's subtract. 9 take away 9 is 0. Let's bring down the 3. How many times does 3 go into 3? It goes in 1 time. Let's multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. Let's subtract. 3 take away 3 is 0. Let's bring down the 6. How many times does 3 go into 6? 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Let's subtract. 6 take away 6 is 0. Let's bring down the 9. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, that's 0. So that means we're done with the division. Let's place our decimal point, because I know that my answer could not possibly be 3,123. So let's place that decimal point. Remember, when we are dividing a decimal by a whole number, the decimal point just goes straight up. That means it's going to go in between the 2 and the 3, so my answer is 312 3/10. No units here, so 312 3/10 is my last and final answer. Let's move on to our next problem. Here we have the blocks below show 2 and 20 hundredths. Divide the blocks into 4 even groups. Think 2 and 20 hundredths divided by 4. Draw the blocks in 4 even groups below. Well, first let's figure out how this shows 2 and 20 hundredths. Well, these are base 10 blocks. So these flats, these represent 1 hole. So that's 1 hole and 1 hole. And these rods represent tenths. That's 1/10 and 2/10. We could count it up and see that these are actually 20 hundredths in total. So that's how they're getting 2 and 20 hundredths. Let's go ahead and do our long division. Let's set it up. 2 and 20 hundredths goes inside the house, because that is the dividend. Let's write 4 on the outside, because that is our divisor. So let's go ahead and start. How many times does 4 go into 2? Well, it can't. That's 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 2 take away 0 is 2. Bring down the 2. How many times does 4 go into 22? 5 times, because 5 times 4 is 20. Let's go ahead and subtract 22, take away 20, that's 2. And then bring down my 0, which is 20. So now I have 4 into 20, which is, once again, 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract, that's 0. So that means we're done with the division. Bear in mind, the rule when we are dividing a decimal by a whole number, we put the decimal point straight up. I'm going to put it straight up so it's in between the 0 and the 5. So 2 and 20 hundredths is divided by 4 is 55 hundredths. That's the correct answer, but I'm not done yet. It says that I have to draw the blocks in 5 even groups below. So let's go ahead and model 55 hundredths. 55 hundredths is made up of 5 tenths and 5 hundredths. So let's do our 5 tenths. Remember, those are going to be the rods. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the 5/10ths, and now let's do the 500ths. Those are going to be tiny little squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 55/100ths. And that's one group. Not done yet because I need to draw 4 groups. So I'm going to do the same picture 3 more times. I'm going to do this a little bit quicker because there's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and then 5/100ths. Let's do it another time. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and 5/100ths. Now let's do it one more time. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and then 5/100ths. So I'm done because I just drew my answer, my quotient, which is 55/100ths, 4 different times because I'm showing that the blocks are divided into 4 even groups. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how you divide decimals. Good luck in your IA review.